What's up, fish tank people? Dustin's Fish Tank's bringing it to you on a Sunday, baby. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. In today's video, it's Sunday, it's Species Sunday, but I'm gonna talk about a fish that I've never kept before. A quick note here, I hardly ever try to talk about anything that I'm not personally keeping or have kept for a long period of time. I stay in my lane, I know my role. African cichlids, I'm not keeping African cichlids. You're not seeing me personally talking about a lot with African cichlids. Saltwater tanks, my daughter wants me to set up a saltwater tank. I haven't had a saltwater tank in over 10 years. I'm not talking a lot about saltwater tanks. You'll notice that doesn't mean I don't enjoy looking at both a saltwater tank or a cichlid tank. I'm not a monster fish keeper. I don't like big fish. They eat my plants and eat smaller fish. Closest thing I got to monster fish are these koi right here. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate monster fish. But there is one type of fish that I've never kept before that kind of fits my style of fish keeping. It's from South America and it's readily available in the hobby, and I could probably get my hands on some really ridiculous specimens of it. But folks, this story, like most good fish tank stories, starts in the jungle. Just kidding, we didn't catch any of this fish, even though we tried for hours. And in fact, folks, it was this type of fish that was actually kept in this 220-gallon aquarium behind me before this tank became mine. That's right, folks, I can't delay it any longer. Today we're talking about discus fish. Is Dustin doing discus fish or is Dustin dissing discus fish? I want your feedback on discus in the comments. Here's the good news about discus. Let's start with the positives here, folks. Talking about discus. Discus. The positives, they're beautiful. Discus are beautiful fish. You can find a discus in any color of the rainbow you want that fits your fancy. I actually like the giant yellow ones. Look at these fish around here. These are from Uncle Sam's Discus, my man Wes. These fish are amazing looking. What's another positive about discus? They get big. Yeah, big, beautiful fish. They get big like the size of flapjacks. Not only do they get big and then they school together. How great is that? You got big, beautiful, round fish all schooling together. So you got this big, beautiful fish that goes into school. Not only that, it goes into school, but it can also live in a planted aquarium, something I happen to be fond of. Big, beautiful fish in a planted aquarium. What could go wrong with keeping discus? So what are the downsides to keeping discus? They get big, they school, they come in any color of the rainbow, and you keep them in a planted tank. What's the downside, Dusty? This could be a downside or an upside, but it's a nice segue into the downside, and that is this: the challenge of keeping discus. We talked about the good, now we're gonna talk about the bad, and here are 7 reasons why I'm not keeping discus. My number 7 reason I'm not keeping discus: they are finicky eaters. My boy Steve used to feed them white worms. What do you never see me feed any of my fish? White worms. Why don't I feed white worms? Now I gotta keep something, I gotta feed something that's the food to feed my fish. So I gotta feed the food of my fish. Not doing that. My number 6 reason I'm not keeping discus: they're expensive. You know, I'm not afraid of spending money on a fish. I'm gonna drop 25 bucks on a fish about this big, barely able to survive, kind of sensitive. Heck no, I spent 25, I got a $300 koi in there. You know what happens? That fish is frozen solid all winter long, comes out and greets me like I'm Aerosmith begging for food. Am I gonna spend my money on a tiny little fish this big, or am I gonna buy a $300 koi that can survive the winter? My number 5 reason I'm not keeping discus: they're sensitive and susceptible to diseases. My boy Steve used to keep them. You can click the links around here and see his discus. Steve is a doctor, okay? He can prescribe his own metronidazole, all right? Like the stuff you feed your fish to keep them healthy. He can prescribe it, and he had problems keeping discus without getting some sort of parasite or something. He couldn't figure it out and would watch him slowly die over a week. My number 4 reason I'm not keeping discus: discus like warmer water. Warmer water above 80. Generally speaking, plants hate it when the water gets above 80. I like keeping lots of plants, not to mention I hardly run heaters in any of my tanks. Then I got one more device to worry about failing. My number 3 reason I'm not keeping discus: you gotta feed them a lot initially to get them going. My boy Steve is keeping a bare bottom tank, so it's easier to clean the tank. What happens when you feed a lot, you get a lot of algae. And when you need to get rid of the algae, you gotta do big water changes, which leads me to number 2. And my number 2 is a 2-part thing. Part 1 is this: the water parameters that discus generally like does not match the water coming out of my tap, which means more work for Dustin. Part 2 is this: discus do not like big water parameter swings. My zodiac symbol is an Aquarius, which is literally a dude pouring a giant bucket of water. Astrologically, Dustin is not meant to keep discus. And my number 1 reason I'm not keeping discus They get spooked easy. You turn the lights on, they get spooked. They hide. They don't look at you. They're like the hot chick at the bar that won't give you the time of day even though you're trying to buy her a drink and you've said some good jokes. Sarah, let's get out of here. If I'm dropping 50 bucks on a fish, that fish better greet me when I walk into the room and ask me, how the heck was your day, Dad? This $4 betta fish right here has more personality than any Discus I've ever met in my entire life. Do me a favor, folks, hit that notification button and that subscribe button around here and drop me a comment on what you think about keeping Discus. Maybe I got all this all wrong, or maybe, just maybe, I'm putting Discus into 350 whenever I get that sucker set up. Tank on, everybody. Make it a great week. Later.